Russ Grimm is a Redskins legend. His son carries on family name as an a.ssistant coach. The creek kept them occupied. The boys would carry their fishing poles across the grass as instructed, past the yellow uprights and beyond the back corner of the field. They'd cast their lines, hoping to get a nibble, while their father, sturdy and strong, would watch when he could. But, invariably, work would require his attention. He had us fishing behind the park, Chad Grimm recalled of those excursions with his younger brother Cody. And then he was like, "Okay, I've got to go to practice. You guys fish for a little bit and come walk through the practice field when you're done." His dad, Hall of Famer and Washington Redskins legend Russ Grimm, remembers those days too. "Sometimes you'd have to go to practice and hope they stay out of trouble," Russ said by phone a few weeks later with a deep, throaty chuckle. "That is until practice was over and they're covered in mud and everything else. But boys will be boys." Decades later, Chad, the oldest of the four Grimm children at age 32, finds himself not far from that very creek, patrolling that same practice field. He now roams the same hallways his father once did, back when Russ was a fixture in Ashburn as the tight ends and defensive line coach, watching film in an office 3 doors down from the one that belonged to his dad. "Yeah, there's a lot of history here," said Chad during a recent interview, donning a Redskins pullover, shorts and a number 2 pencil behind his right ear. His first season in his new role as Washington's outside linebackers coach, a promotion from his previous stint as the team's defensive quality control coach in 2015 and 16, is nearing a close. But during a half-hour break from his game week preparation, Chad paused to reflect on the path that led him back to his home state of Virginia, his dream of eventually becoming an NFL head coach and the external pressure of living up to his famous last name. During an NFL season of protests and criticism, Chris Long asked, "Why not help?" Russ is now the offensive line coach for the Tennessee Titans, but his legacy will forever loom large over the Redskins franchise. As an original member of the Hogs, Washington's famed offensive lines of the 1980s and early 90s, Russ was an immovable force during the team's run to 3 Super Bowls. He helped pave the way for Redskins greatness more than 30 years ago. Chad's contributions to the Redskins will never come on the gridiron like his famous father. Nevertheless, he relishes the opportunity to share another link with his old man. Life, as he says, has come full circle. "A lot of people say all the time, 'Oh, I'm so blessed.' But honestly, it is the exact feeling I have every day. And I'm thankful," says Chad, who was raised 15 minutes from Redskins Park in Fairfax County and graduated from Acton High School. "It just seemed like all of the stars kind of aligned." Returning to his roots, Chad traces his father's image on the wall, guiding his fingertips over the flat surface of Russ's hard expression. The snapshot of Russ's Hall of Fame bust from his 2010 Canton induction is just one of many photos used in a mural that spans an entire wall outside of the Redskins locker room. Down that same hallway, to the right, a collage of Redskins greats adorn the double doors leading to the weight room. At the top, the acronym HTTR, Hail to the Redskins, is emblazoned in yellow block letters. On the bottom right, Russ's hulking frame and the 8 of his number 68 jersey are visible behind fellow Hall of Famer Ken Houston. "I'm just proud," Chad says, beaming. "I obviously grew up a huge Redskins fan. So it's like a constant reminder that I get to work for the team I grew up loving when he was playing. It's pretty sweet. Every time I go to dinner or I go into the locker room, it's a little reminder of how our family and the Redskins family are linked." Chad, who was 7 when his father retired from the NFL, still remembers wearing Russ's jersey to Redskins home games and while the family watched games at home on one of those huge box TVs. He added, "We'd say, 'Oh, there's Dad.' And we'd point to him." Russ was an immense figure during his playing days, 6'3", 290 pounds, and the last name Grimm came with an unspoken responsibility. "Obviously, you had the pressures of not wanting to be a screw-up," Chad said. "My dad, he was always gone so much with coaching, So when he was around, it was kind of like, you wanted to impress him. You were seeking his approval. Trent Williams has only considered one outcome to the Kirk Cousins saga, but by the time he walked on at Virginia Tech as a primary special teamer and occasional linebacker, Chad had confronted the obvious truth about his athletic shortcomings. He was too undersized to make an NFL roster, let alone carve out a Hall of Fame career like his dad. I can remember meeting people and them being like, "Wait, you're Russ Grimm's son? What the hell happened? I thought you'd be bigger," said the 5'10" Chad, who weighed 185 pounds in college. When that would come up, I'd be like, yeah, well, maybe I got more of my mom's genes. Kerrigan Grimm, he guessed, is about 5'4". Obviously, he was such a great football player that people just assumed I was supposed to be some great football player, too. But Russ tried to ensure that his 3 boys never felt pressured to be him. Obviously, they didn't have my size, so that was a plus because I didn't have to worry about them playing offensive line, said Russ, who became the Titans line coach in January 2016 after coaching stops in Washington, Pittsburgh and Arizona. You kind of want them to look up to you, to a certain point. I always felt that you want them to be their own person. Not always try to mimic what dad does. Unlike Cody, a former a.ssistant standout and Virginia Tech star, who was drafted in the 7th round by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2010, Chad's entree into the NFL came through coaching. He spent 4 seasons as an offensive quality control coach for the Arizona Cardinals. At the time, Russ was their offensive line coach, before becoming a defensive quality control for the San Diego Chargers. Then in January 2015, Chad returned to his roots, joining Coach Jay Gruden's staff. In his defensive quality control role, he assisted the outside linebackers and helped Preston Smith lead all rookies in sacks, 8, in 2015. This season, Ryan Kerrigan leads the team with 11 sacks, followed by Smith, 8. Just because he didn't play in the league doesn't mean he doesn't know his stuff, Kerrigan said of his position coach. He's as well prepared as any coach I've had. He's very smart, works very hard at it, and you can see it in how well prepared we are. Here is what's at stake on the final weekend of the NFL regular season. When Chad arrived at Redskins Park, he was greeted by a familiar face, Ms. B.J. Blanchard, the team's secretary the past 25 years, remembers Russ, as both player and coach. "She's a beauty. That's my favorite," Russ says, warmly, and she remembers his eldest son too. "The first week I started working," Chad recalled, "she came by my office and said, 'Do you remember me? I'm Miss BJ, and you and your brother were like this big, and I had to watch you guys when your dad was working and in meetings. You'd be running all through the building.' His own path, more than 600 miles now separate them, with once-a-week phone calls serving as their main source of communication in season. Russ had no reservations about his eldest son joining the coaching ranks. In his eyes, Chad's good instincts and intelligence would carry him far in this profession. But the 4-time Pro Bowler was quick to share some advice. "I told him, number 1, if you're going to get in it, you better know what you're doing and you better do it well, or you're not going to be in it very long," Russ said. "And number 2, you're going to put in some hours." So early in his career, we'd go to the beach for vacation in the summer and he'd be like, "Oh, my life's ready to end." And I said, "Yep, that's right. You're going to training camp." His bluntness and tough exterior is a byproduct of his rearing in Scottsdale, Pennsylvania, a small town 49 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. Russ has never been one to sugarcoat things, even with his kids. "We joke all the time," said Chad, who married his girlfriend, Michelle, in early July. "He's a Western, pa guy, so he's not an I love you, hugs kinda guy." Russ laughed when told of his reputation for being less than affectionate. "That's what moms are for," he said, half-jokingly. "If they fall down,